Hi, Tasha. Thanks so much for joining me on the Spirit, Mind, and Soul podcast. You obviously TEDx speaker. I've seen your TEDx talk, and I took so many little nuggets from it that I think we're going to talk about because I think it'll be amazing for other people to hear. They might resonate with it as well. So yeah, we're really going back to childhood in this, well, in our conversation because we're talking about an absent parent. I can relate to that, and I'm sure there's other people that can as well. Everyone's story is very unique, so I can't wait to delve deeper into your own story, Tasha. So, do you want to take us right back, as far back as you would like to go, that you feel, that we can get a clear picture of what childhood was like for you?
Yes. Well, hello, Karen. Thank you so much for just inviting me here to have this conversation because that's exactly what we're going to have as a
Mm,
conversation. And everybody, I appreciate you for being here and listening to my story. Well, I can say the memory that comes to me the most is 8 years old. Being 8 years old, my mom, she actually got married to someone else. And it was just her and I for a long time because my siblings are older than I am.
right.
And they didn't live with my mom and myself. And my sister, she was gone. My sister and I, we were 7 years apart. So when my mom got married, this was she actually my dad. Well, I say you'll hear me refer to my stepdad as my dad
Mm-hmm.
because he raised me from the age of 8 until he passed away when I was in my early 20s. And they got married. So, of course, when you're the only child at home, it's just you and your mom, and you're having a wonderful time, and you ain't got to share anything with anybody else. It's just you and her, and you just being a child, of
Mm-hmm.
course, getting into things. So she introduces me to this man. And at first, Karen, I was like, who is this person? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to make a long story short, they dated for about 6 months. And I remember I was in the third grade. And so, like I said, they got married on Valentine's Day. And of course, back when I was growing up, we had Valentine's Day parties all day long. So I purposely, Karen, ate candy all day. I didn't eat any lunch, anything. So it came time for the ceremony. We went to the ceremony. Everything was good. And I'm going to back up just for a minute. Now, prior to them getting married, everything was fine. I got along well with them. I loved having a dad around. And I
Mm-hmm.
immediately went into calling him dad
Mm-hmm.
because he was a person that I didn't know I needed at 8 years old. Who knows that at 8 years old? But I knew I needed it. So I called him dad. But when they got married, it seemed like it's like I had was that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde moment
Mm-hmm.
where I just flipped the script and did not want them to get married because I felt that he was coming in and taking my mom away from me.
Yeah.
So we get to the ceremony. The ceremony was beautiful. It's like I can remember it like it was yesterday. Now we get to the reception. I started to get sick at the reception. I vomited. I was very, very sick at the reception. My mom's friends, they was tending to me because she was having a good time at her reception with her new husband. She came out to check on me, and my mom is a wonderful person, but she was not tough, but she knew what I was doing because she knew her daughter. She
Mm-hmm.
knew that I was trying to ruin the best day of her life. She knew it. So she didn't fall for it. I don't know how many parents out there have had children to do things and they do things on purpose and they've done it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. She comes out there. She sees me. She said, "Oh, she's fine." She goes back into the reception. Well, we get home that night and I'm in my room sitting on my bed. I'm angry. I'm crying. I'm just devastated because there's a new person that's been added to our family. And I don't want him there. Why? Because he's not my dad. He's not my biological father. And I was angry, so angry. And I did not want him there. So my mom and my dad, my stepfather, they called me into their bedroom and they talked to me. I didn't want to hear that. So I'm sitting on their bed between both of them. My mom is on one side of me and my dad was on the other side. So I'm sitting in between them. And he says to me, well, my mom says to me, Tasha, he's going to be in our lives. God has given him to us. And I know it's going to be an adjustment, but we're going to get through this. So now I have to experience a blended family, which I didn't really understand what a blended family was. And I told him, I said, well, you can leave now. What 8-year-old says that?
Mm.
I told him that you can leave now. And he picks me up on his lap and he looks at me. He says, I love your mom. I love you and I love your siblings. And I'm not going anywhere. He said, when I leave this earth, he said, that'll be my last breath because I'm never going to leave your mom and I'm never going to leave you.
Mm. Mm.
I didn't know the weight of that. And I didn't know the meaning of that until maybe last week. My mom and I was having a discussion. And she says to me, she asked me a question. She said, Tasha, when did you know that your dad was your dad for you? When did you know that? And my eyes began to well up. And I said, oh, I wish you wouldn't have asked me that question.
Mm.
I said, I knew that he was a blessing to me the day he passed away because I seen him pass away. I was
Mm.
there when he took his last breath.
Wow.
And I wanted to share that story because during the time they were married for 14 years before he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave him hell. Excuse my language, y'all. But I gave him hell the first 9 years of their marriage. I caused trouble intentionally. I caused my mom heartache because I was doing everything in my power to drive him away. I didn't want him in my life. And that's why that's why the anger was there because my biological father was not there. So
Mm-hmm.
I took the anger out on my stepfather,
Mm-hmm.
the man who was there for me every day of my life from the age of 8 to the age of 22, 23 years old until he took his last breath. So I only had 5 years left of his life that went by really, really fast to really understand and know what having a real father was like.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed out on it because of the anger. And I grew up with it. So later on, and I wanted to share that story with you all so you can understand the background of why I was angry
Yeah.
because my biological father wasn't in my life. And he
Yeah.
wasn't in my life because he needed to be absent. And I didn't realize that until I was in my late 20s, going into my early 30s. And I didn't know the full story. And I still honestly don't know the full story. I just know some of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when I was in my eighth grade, going into summer of the eighth grade, going into the eighth grade, my biological father, he and I was having a conversation, and we were in the kitchen in the home that he was visiting with his one of his cousins, and he was talking to me, and he was talking to me about boys, and he said, I know that you're in an age where you're starting to like boys, and boys are starting to like you, and he said, I have a beautiful daughter, pretty daughter. And I was like, thank you, Dad. And Dad came out of my mouth because when you're a child, you want to call your parents who they are. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just natural. And he kept talking to me. And I realized that the conversation had begun to become inappropriate. Karen, this might be a little tough because this is the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
time.
yeah. So only share what you're comfortable sharing, honestly. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'll just say this. The conversation became inappropriate for a father to talk
Mm.
to a daughter. And that was not good.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately
How
left
old
the
were you,
kitchen.
Tasha? Sorry, how old were you at this
I
point?
was 13.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep, I was 13 years old. And I know that the conversation was turning left. It was very, very inappropriate because I understood that A father should not talk to a daughter in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't dawn on me then until I started having, when I started the process for my TEDx, which was how to deal with an absent parent. But I talked about how to forgive and how when you focus on the past, it keeps you stuck in the past. And it does.
Mm-hmm.
But when I learned a little bit about my sister's story, which is also my story, because I told her what our father had done, that didn't go over so well because it made her angry. But at that time, I didn't know why it made her so angry because I was 13 when I told her what he did in the conversation that he was having with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I still didn't understand until she told me years later. So I dealt with anger for a long time, from
Yeah.
the age of 8 all the way up into my 40s until I did my TEDx talk.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time to deal with anger
Yeah.
because you go through your life making decisions. You don't really understand why you make these decisions and you don't know how to process them. I mean, I had mental challenges that I did not seek help for.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you that what I began to do at the age of 17 was I
Mm-hmm.
started journaling because it helped me to process my mental challenges of the anger and the temper and just making choices that were taking me down a dark path.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did the process of my TEDx, I was coached by a wonderful coach. Her name is Suzanne Stroud, excuse me. And her directness and her compassion and her empathy helped me to process the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
She said, Tasha, if you're going to talk about something this deep, you're going to have to talk about this in a way where you can work through your emotions before you get on the TEDx stage.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I started visiting him in the nursing home, my biological father. I didn't know he was there. I found out through his brother, my uncle. So I went to go visit him, and I visited him almost a month, every week, consistently until I did my TEDx. Me visiting him helped me to realize that what he went through and maybe something that he experienced when he was a child, he did not get help for because therapy wasn't, that was like a taboo thing
Mm-hmm.
back in the 60s and 70s. You know, you didn't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
So when I realized that the anger was there because of that, I was able to forgive him for understanding and knowing that something happened to him. And because he didn't get help for it, I
Mm-hmm.
can't blame him for something that he didn't understand or he didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So forgiving a person for an unforgivable act is not easy,
Yeah.
but it's doable.
Right.
It's
So
doable.
what was the gap then from seeing him? So when did you last see when you visited him in in the nursing home? How long had it been since you'd seen your dad?
Wow. So prior to me seeing him in 2024, it was maybe 2 or 3 years since
Okay.
then because I visited him in the in the hospital when I
Mm-hmm.
found out he was sick. That was
Okay.
in 2021, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So he was
So I
still in
visited
your
him in the
life?
nursing home. I mean, in the hospital, huh?
He was still in your life from the age of 13 when the incident, was he in and out of your life?
He was barely there because prior to me seeing him in the hospital in 20 or 21, I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't seen him for almost 20 years by that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just imagine
Yeah.
not having your parent, whether it be your father or your mother, in that long time. I've barely seen him, barely
Mm-hmm.
in and out, in and out.
Yeah. Because the focus of your TED Talk, which I really liked, and I really appreciate that you've actually gone into a lot more depth and detail here with for this podcast, which I appreciate, and it does give a much clearer picture. From me having listened to your TEDx talk to now hearing what you're talking about now, it's definitely there's obviously a lot more depth to it because the TEDx talks about an absent parent. So
Yeah,
your dad not around in your early years, sort of toddler years going into school age? He wasn't
yep.
around, your dad?
Nope, he wasn't around at all.
Yeah.
He
And
wasn't at all.
you say that your mum obviously you know now that there's a reason why she kept him out of your life.
One thing that my mom said to us when we were, because my sister and I are 7 years apart.
Mhm.
I believe I was maybe in elementary school. My sister
Mhm.
was in high school. My mom said to us, she said, when you get older, when
Mhm.
you become an adult, you'll understand why
Yeah.
your father was not around.
Yeah.
My mom never talked bad about our dad. She
Mhm.
never said anything disrespectful about him.
Mhm.
She just always would say to us, you will understand
Yeah.
when you become an adult.
Yeah. My mum did something similar. Yeah. It's a good mum. That doesn't, yeah, just lets you find out for yourself the reasons why
Yep.
they're not around so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm thinking of is I remember you mentioning during the TEDx that you heard a phone call between your mum and dad, and actually this is a story that I can resonate with. You were excited, you thought, you know, it's my time to see my dad, and you could tell
Mm-hmm.
from the conversation that you weren't going to see him, and you were really hurt. I had a very
Yeah.
similar experience as well, so I can relate. And you're so innocent and unaware. All you know is that this man who you is your father or your father
Yeah.
figure and your hero, and then you don't understand why he does not want to see you, or is making excuses as to why they can't see you.
Yeah. And that was, I believe that action from him is what made me angrier all the more.
Yeah.
When you tell a child that you're going to come and visit when it's their time, or you're talking to your parent on the phone and they say, well, I'll come and pick you up on a Saturday afternoon at 12 p.m. So you're excited. Friday night, you're getting ready. You're talking to to the parent that actually stayed and took care of you, whether it be your father or your mother that stayed and took care of you, because there are moms that are actually absent for whatever reason, and the child is being raised by the father. But
Mhm.
you're excited, you're getting your clothes ready, you're thinking about all the stuff you're going to do, and then you hardly can't sleep at night,
Mhm.
because the night before, because you're excited that you're going to see your parent the next day, and then the time is getting closer and it's getting closer, and
Mhm.
then the time has come. No parent.
Mhm.
Where are you? Now you're pacing back and forth. I mean, my heart was like racing. It was like a pain I had in my chest, because I'm like, okay, I hear them talking on the phone. She don't sound like it's a good conversation.
Mhm.
Like, is he making an excuse again? Like, this can't be happening again. So
Mhm.
being an 8-year old and thinking that and hearing that, and then but you're still hopeful as a child.
Mhm.
You're still hopeful because you want it to happen. But then when it doesn't happen, it's like a break in your heart. It's like a break in your spirit as a child.
Mhm.
And then there's that void, and that
Yeah.
void begins to open up little bit by little bit, even a lot more every time that a promise has been made and it's been broken.
Yeah. And you mentioned journaling to work through these emotions, because obviously that hurt, if it's not addressed at the time, it's just it's gonna manifest in other ways. And you spoke about being difficult as a teenager and making life hell for your parents. So yeah, probably some of that is manifesting from the heart and
Oh,
the
yeah.
anger that's maybe not been addressed as a child. So you were talking about you journaled. So how did that help you? I'm a big advocate for journaling as well. How did that help you work through the emotions?
Oh, Karen, it helped me to work through my emotions in ways that I didn't even imagine that could happen. Healing came when I didn't realize when healing happened. I
Mm-hmm.
was able to forgive people and I was able to forgive myself. It took me a long time. It helped me to become accountable for the decisions that I did make, but I had to realize that those decisions that I made were not my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And let me explain that it was not my fault in case somebody is listening and they, well, how is it not my fault or your fault when you actually made the decision? When you go through something traumatic as that, deep as that, as an absent parent. And then you grow older to find out why they were absent and they needed to be absent because
Mhm.
of a situation that causes them to be absent because they needed to. You begin to make decisions from anger,
Mhm.
and those decisions are not always good. So when something is caused, which was my father's absence, I didn't cause that. He caused that. So that's what I mean when I say making decisions and being held accountable and accepting the fact that a lot of the decisions that I made in my life or a lot of the decisions that you make in your life is not your fault. You
Yeah.
didn't cause those things.
Mhm. Mhm. I think it's important to say, just because you were talking about, every decision we make is emotionally driven. So
Mm-hmm.
even though the trigger might come from external, it could be, hurt from someone else, or someone else doing something that, betrayal, or that prompts shame, or whatever that emotion may be. And it is really important, even if we don't know how to do it. I certainly didn't know as a child or teenager how to address these emotions that were all, just sitting there waiting to be addressed, that were manifesting in ways that were not
Mm-hmm.
positive or productive for me. And I was making
Right.
decisions coming from that place. So
Yep.
yeah, tools like journaling is just really powerful for getting it all out of your head onto paper. It's like a release, from like an emotional release from your body. And
Oh
then
yeah.
once you let it go, I feel that you can tap into emotions that are, more positive and productive for you. You'll make decisions from that place.
Yeah. And journaling is a way of escape.
Yeah.
I know that's what it became to me. It was my way, like you said, Karen, to express emotions, to get that emotional release, that
Mhm.
mental release. Because I found out that when you hold on to emotions and mental distresses, it will begin to birth other things that you may not be able to handle.
Mhm.
It can cause you to go into addictions. And for me, it was just a spring and a path of downward spiral, making decisions that were not good,
Mhm.
that led me down a dark path. And it's like it held me there. But I believe that the more I journaled, the more I began to come away and be pulled back from that dark path.
Mhm.
In my journaling, like I stated earlier, it didn't start until I was 17. So from 8 to 17, just imagine
Mhm.
me dealing with it without the journaling, so to speak. But I remember times where I would do art. I love art.
Mhm.
And I would just draw or scribble. I was excited being in elementary school and then going to art class or my art teacher coming to our class and we would have our moment and we would learn about art
Mhm.
and not realizing it now that I'm thinking about it, that that was a form of creative expression to get out those emotions that were being internalized for so many years. When I
Mhm.
became a high schooler, when I got into high school, I
Mhm.
did art, but it wasn't as much, or I didn't really like choose art. So art just went away and I didn't pick it back up again until I became an adult.
Mhm.
But then there was home ec, sewing, and learning how to cook. Now I'm getting ready to tell y'all something about me about I skipped home ec class a lot, but not knowing that the what I did learn, that sewing actually helped me to be in a tranquil place. I was it quieted my spirit. And I really understood it when I became an adult because I love to sew and I love, love, love it. Because when you're sewing, it just does something to your mind and to your mental state and to your emotions. Where when you're focused on this one thing that you have your mind set on to do, and that's what it will help you to get out
Mhm.
your emotions that maybe you might be still holding on to.
Mhm.
And then, of course, 17 journaling, but I became more into journaling every day consistently until I got into my 20s, in my 30s, which really drove home why I journaled because of being married. My first marriage when I 30 years old, and I dealt with domestic violence for 10 years of that marriage.
Yeah, I was
So
going
I
to
journaled a lot.
say
Yeah.
Tasha, yeah, because I mean, what we go through in childhood often can trickle into our adulthood, if it's not addressed, or it's often not obviously on a conscious level. We can, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I even see myself, looking back at my life, even reflect, it's such a reflection of my mum's life, even though that wasn't necessarily a positive thing. Some of those things, falling
Yes.
into copying relationship habits and patterns, and that maybe
Mm-hmm.
weren't positive and productive, and I knew that, but I still fell into those same, it's very fun. It's like, very mirrored, when I look at my mum's life and my own life. So I was going to say about your own, how did that flow into adulthood for you?
Yes. And I'm glad that you said that, Karen, because I look at that as well with my mom's life in the things I saw, the things that I didn't see, things that I learned directly and indirectly. I see that it happened in my life
Mm-hmm.
and the pattern of what took place and the decisions that I made. And it's it's challenging because again, I don't know if this happened with your mom or if y'all had conversations like this, but our parents and this, and if I may, Karen, I want to just go back to a point in the TED Talk that I did. I mentioned, I'm not sure if you remember me saying this, but I mentioned how our parents may not have had a positive parental role model
Mm-hmm.
growing up. They may not have had that. When you're a parent, you don't get a parent guide when your child comes out into the world to tell you exactly what they're going to go through, the questions that we're going to ask them, and the conversations that we're going to have. Parents don't get that. They don't get that, and that's another reason why it helped me to forgive my biological father, because I had to honestly really think, okay, well maybe he didn't have a positive role model, so he didn't know how to be a father, and whatever happened to him, he just acted out what happened to him because he didn't know no other way to get it out of him or get it off of him.
Mm-hmm.
And it resulted in that.
Yeah.
So your parents' lives, they can be challenging too. And as children, we think our parents are like these sheroes and heroes that they haven't went through anything, but they have.
Mm-hmm.
They have. So
Yeah.
that's another
Yeah.
thing that we deal with.
I think we can forget to have compassion for our parents as well. I think because we've only ever known them as adults. We
Yeah.
don't know, we never knew them as children, and what the pain or the hurt that or the anger that they
Yeah.
experienced. I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes, even, my dad's not in my life either. He's still very, very much alive, but there's compassion there. Can't have him in my life, but I still feel compassion for whatever has led him to where he is now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think as hard as it may be sometimes, and like you were talking about forgiveness as well, I think just maybe having compassion can
Yeah.
help you forgive,
Yeah.
seeing it from a different perspective. Maybe, I guess
Yeah.
everyone's situation is different, and their whatever the events or traumatic events have been, or will be very different. But yeah, it's helped me, and I just wonder if putting that out there it might help other people
Yeah.
as well. Just it helps you move on a little as well.
And I'm glad that you brought that point up as well, because forgiveness, well, let me say this. Unforgiveness is a disease.
Mm-hmm.
As an it's an emotional disease, a mental disease, a spiritual disease,
Mm-hmm.
because when you walk around with unforgiveness, that too can have a an imprint on your life when you're making the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And those decisions are not good because that unforgiveness just it holds you back because your It's like, and I let me say this too. I grew hate for my biological father. Like hate.
Mhm.
I didn't think a person could hate someone so bad or so strong. And it was because of the unforgiveness that I had in my heart towards him. But I, again, didn't understand why there was unforgiveness there. I didn't understand why there was anger there. And one day, and this was in my first marriage when this happened, my ex-husband and I were going to church. And I woke up that morning and my dad's face, my biological father, his face flashed before me. It's like he was standing in front of me. And I just began to cry and weep and cry. I mean, the entire time. I couldn't even hardly get myself ready for church. I was crying so hard. And so when we got to church, it's like his face just kept coming before me. And so I cried sitting in my chair and I was praying to God. And I said, God, please help me to understand why I'm crying. And hate came up, unforgiveness came up. And I prayed right there and I said, Father, I say, help me to forgive my biological father. Help me to forgive the man that you gave to me to bring, give seed for me to live. Help me to forgive him. Remove the hate out of my heart towards him. Help me to understand why the unforgiveness was there, why the hate was there. And when I did that, Karen, it's like a weight lifted off of me. And that same day after church, I shared with my mom and my sister the experience of what I had because that has never happened. That had never happened to me before because I wouldn't think about my father. I wouldn't think about him. It was like, whatever. But
Mhm.
when that experience happened, I shared it with them. I went to go see him that same day. I think I was 31, maybe. I guess I'm not sure. But it was very emotional.
Mhm.
So I went to him. My mom and my sister went with me. And I told him, I asked him, I said, can I talk to you? And he had an attitude that day. I don't know why, but I said that I forgive you for not being the father that you should have been to me. I forgive you for not being in my life. You know what he said to me, Karen? He said, you don't forgive me. You need to be forgiving yourself. He responded with anger. And he's like, he was poking me in my chest so hard to it was like pushing me back. I mean, he was literally angry with me because I went to him and I told him that I forgive him
Mhm.
for not being in my life and for not being that father. He said, forgive me for what? You don't need to, I don't need your forgiveness. And that was the last time I seen him prior to recently, last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So no self accountability at all. It's
right.
mhm.
Yeah. That was tough.
Mhm.
But hey,
You talk about now there's no signs of fear in you. You walk in confidence because the fear would be basically you, well, taking that on from your dad, or
yeah.
that's who your dad was, but you're sort of, claiming who you are. That's how
Yeah.
I, when you said that, that's how I took it. I don't know if you want to expand. I thought that was a powerful statement that you made, so I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah. When I said that I don't have any fear anymore because I related me confronting my dad when I first
Mhm.
seen him in the hospital when I prior to me visiting him in 24, and then when I see him in the hospital doing like latter 2020 or the early part of 2021, I I saw him as Goliath and I was David. I see him as the giant
Mhm.
and I was afraid of him.
Mhm.
But after visiting him, I realized that I didn't have to fear anymore. I can walk in confidence now. I
Mhm.
can walk with my shoulders back. I can walk with my head held high. And something that I did growing up, and I don't know why I just started doing it, but I would begin to just walk with my head held high. I practiced that every day when I was in my teens, like 17. And I would walk with my head up and I would walk forward. I would walk straight. I'll never walk with my head down because I feel like when a person is walking with their head down, they're they're down about something emotionally. And
Mm-hmm.
so they look down because that's what they feel on the inside. So I began to practice walking with my head up. And there was times where I would catch myself when I was looking down and I would look up and facing him, the giant as I called him, it helped me to release unforgiveness that I didn't know was still there even more. And the fear went away. And I was able to talk to him, go visit him at the nursing home. Even I even visited him after I did my TED talk. My sister and I visited my our father on Father's Day last year, which was our first time ever spending time with him on Father's Day for the both of us. My sister's in her early 50s. I'm in my late 40s. So just imagine having a Father's Day with your father for the very first time in your adult life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And did that give you any sort of closure? Did you need closure?
For me, it did because prior to my TEDx, I would visit him every week. So I was getting my closure then because, and he has dementia. He's in early stages. So he didn't really know who I was when I started visiting him. But as I visited him more, he would realize that it was me. He actually thought I was my sister.
Mm-hmm.
That's who he thought I was when I would visit him. So for me, it was closure when I visited him on Father's Day. For my sister, it wasn't so much as a closure. She had a hard time that day.
And a different
We actually both
experience,
did
I guess.
because,
Yeah, it's two
yeah,
different life experiences as well, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it was tough. So yeah, for me, it was closure. Now I haven't seen him since Father's Day last year, but it's been an urge in my spirit and on my heart to go visit him because I want to know if he's doing okay. And because, like you said, Karen, is that compassion
Mm-hmm.
for him. And as a daughter, still, I had a void in my heart for him growing up from a little girl up until now. And I carried that void for like 37 years. So seeing him, it didn't feel it, so to speak, because we still won't be able. I mean, well, I'm not sure if we would have a relationship because of his health, him
Mm-hmm.
not knowing me sometimes. But I don't know him because of the conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I probably won't ever get to know him.
Yeah. So how do you move on then? We were obviously talking about closure there, and you do say you've got a sense of that, and you've worked through, I guess, the emotions from childhood, and journaling helped you with that. I know you went on to do your own. You've got your own journals now, which we'll talk about because I want to hear more about what they involve. So
Yeah.
do you feel like you're at a stage where you've moved on because you actually say in your TEDx as well, if you focus on the past or it keeps you in the past, so
Hmm.
you feel that you've moved on and it's like you've closed that door and you're able to focus on the future.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that every day.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the strength from that every day. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that comes from me sharing my story with middle schoolers and high schoolers when I go to the schools and I talk to them and I share with them my story
Mm-hmm.
about how I went through domestic abuse in marriages, and I shared a little bit with certain individuals my story about what I went through with my biological father.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been very much a closure for me. That is the healing for me. And I don't dwell on it. I don't dwell on him not being in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't dwell on it because if I do, or if a person dwells on something,
Mm-hmm.
they'll never be able to look towards the future. They'll never be able to see themselves happy. I mean, genuinely happy. They won't be able to grow emotionally and mentally and spiritually. They won't be able to see that or experience that
Mhm.
because they're holding them on, they're holding themselves in the past
Mhm.
because they can't get over something.
Mhm.
They can't get past that one incident
Mhm.
where I was able to do that. That's how I was able to forgive an unforgivable act by
Yeah.
not being stuck there in the
And
past.
I love what your mum said as well about, that your stepdad, who you called dad, is was like God gave him to us, and I love that because, and I was, I've got a stepdad who's been around for more than 20 years, and I feel, I didn't get the father figure that I thought I wanted, or, biological father figure, but I did, I was given, yeah, I feel like I don't know how I would put it into words, but it's the best for. I feel like it was the best of a bad situation. I was given something good from
Yes.
a bad situation, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes perfect sense, Karen. Perfect sense. Because, like I stated earlier, when I was sharing the story with you, when I was saying how, with everybody, when I was saying how I gave them hell like the first 9 years of their
Mm-hmm.
marriage, because I just didn't want him. I didn't give him a chance. I didn't give my stepfather a chance to get to know me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't give, him a chance. I didn't give him a chance, either way. I just didn't give him a chance at all, whether it was me getting to know him or him getting to know me.
Mm-hmm.
I blocked it off immediately. I just like, no, I don't want it. But then I realized that was the best decision for my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that until I heard some of the story of what my sister went through. So it's all connected. We may not see it at the beginning, but as we go through our life, we begin to, when we reflect on the events that happen throughout our lives, we understand that, oh, yes, that was supposed to happen. Oh, yes, that was supposed to happen. I'm glad that this happened. And that's why I journal a lot because it helps you to track your life and where you was at this point in your life
Mm-hmm.
and where you are now at this stage in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, that helps. It was the best thing ever. And I'm glad that my mom asked me that question,
Mm-hmm.
last week when she said, when did I realize that my dad was my dad?
Yeah, I'm glad she asked you last week because obviously it's given us a little breakthrough for you to speak about today.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
tell us about your journals, Tasha, because you now, through your own experience with journaling and how they've helped you, you've put together journals that now other people can work through, whatever stage they're at in their life that they're working through the emotions. And yeah, tell us about them. How did you create them? Where did the idea come from? How can they help others? Tell us what's in them that helps others.
Well, the idea came from actually this.
Mm-hmm.
This is a journal that was given to me when I turned 25 years old. My stepdad, and well, of course, my stepdad was deceased by this time, but his best friend and my mom gave me this journal. And it took me 21 years of my life to complete it.
Wow.
Yeah. So from the age of 25 until last month in January, I completed this journal in
Wow.
my 40s.
It's
So
a
21 years of my
lifetime
life
in
is in
there.
this journal.
Yeah.
Huh?
It's like a lifetime in there in one book.
Yeah, it is. And that's what gave me the idea to create my own journal
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to share with others and teach others that journaling is a form of healing.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, and I hope nobody don't, I hope people understand when I say this that I love therapy. I've had therapists. I've gotten sought help for, things in my life that I was struggling with. But I realized that journaling was my form of therapy. It was my form of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to do it with no judgment, no shame, no guilt, no fear. Though, and you mentioned this earlier. You said it was a moment, a journaling is a moment where you're able to get everything that's in your mind
Mm-hmm.
out and you can release it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I completed that journal, I said, you know what? I want to know if others would like to experience what I've experienced. And my organization is called No Longer Silent. And we have, if do we have time where I can share that little bit of that little
Of course.
story?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So back in October of last year, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And prior to that, I took a class, a course where, a training rather, where I received a certificate, but I also received certifications as a therapeutic art life coach to help individuals with maneuvering through their emotional trauma, their wounds, and how to heal from them, and how to discover their purpose, and just to reclaim their voice. Because when we go through emotional things, it will steal our voices away from us. We don't speak about it. We don't talk about it.
Mhm.
So I went through that training, and October came. I'm going out for a regular day, and something happened. I experienced a tragedy. I didn't know this was going to happen, but it happened. I experienced a young man ending his life in broad daylight.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, I know it's like I never thought I would see something like that in real life.
Mhm.
And earlier that day, I heard in my spirit these three words, no longer silent. I didn't know what it meant. But after experiencing that young man ending his life during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I was like, oh, I've been silent too long. That's what I heard my spirit say to me. I've been silent too long.
Mhm.
I need to start talking about it. I need to start voicing it. And fast forward and leading up to now, journaling is one way that I share to help others share their story by journaling so they can reclaim their voice and discover their purpose. And when I created these journals, I mean, they're digital journals that can be printed off. But I created these journals, and the journal is called No Longer Silent. And it's 4 journals. And the first one is Breaking the Silence. And it's actually 30 days, but it's 4 journals that I broke up into parts. And the
Mhm.
second one is Owning Your Truths. The third journal is Transitioning to Strength. And then the fourth journal is Sharing Your Story.
Mhm.
So in these journals, yeah, Karen, I believe me, I went through them. I did. You, a person, and I believe that my journals, No Longer Silent, because that's what it's named, is going to help the individual really reflect and think back. And it's going to cause that individual to go and reflect from childhood,
Mhm.
because there's still a lot of individuals out there that has not dealt with a lot of things that happened in their childhood, and they grew up with it, and they carried it into their adulthood.
Mhm.
So those journals is in stages, and it will help them
Mhm.
reclaim their voice,
Yeah.
discover their purpose, but most importantly, it will help them heal from emotional wounds that was caused in their life.
Yeah. I love that. I love the theme of each one, and it's like a journey in itself, isn't it? It's like a transformation, and then you it's like I don't know, I would call it like you unravel one thing and then it
Hmm.
opens space for you to sort of transition or focus on the next because it's a spiral. It's never ending. Our journey is never ending. You
Yeah.
heal and you grow, and then there's always more growth that comes. And sometimes you need prompts as well. You need prompts to we don't always see our own blind spots. Journals like
Hmm.
this can help us see the areas or the spaces where there's room for growth and healing as well, I think.
Yeah. And you said the word unraveling, and that's a
Mhm.
very, very good word. That's a
Mhm.
powerful word, actually, because my journals, in particular, these 4 journals, is like it will be an onion peeler.
Yeah. Yeah.
It will literally cause a person to peel back layers of an onion.
Mhm.
And we all know I'm not a chef, but I've
Mhm.
had experience in the kitchen where I've cut an onion and
Mm.
it made me cry.
Mhm.
And I heard someone say that if you have I guess you have to have a specific knife to cut the onion that will not cause you to cry or have the tears to come out. Well, I missed that. I miss that. But my journals are specifically designed and created to cause a person to be an onion and allow the journal to peel back layers,
Mhm.
to peel those layers of the onion and
Mhm.
to cut through the onion, which the onion is the person, it's the person's spirit, it's the person's emotional trauma, it's the person's mental challenges, it's the person's decisions that they made. That's the onion.
Mhm.
And once that person begins to cut the onion, they will cry, they will reflect, they will sob, they will scream, they will resist, they will reject, because these are all of the things that I experienced in my journaling throughout my years. I
Mhm.
had to peel back the onion, but I didn't know it at the time.
Mhm.
And I had to dig deep. And a person has to embrace that. But if they don't embrace it, and that's why I created my journals the way that I created them, because it's for that individual that's ready to peel back the onion, to cut it, to
Mhm.
reflect, to get get out of the past, to become unstuck
Yeah.
and move forward.
Mhm. And how can people get your journals? Is it a hard copy, PDF, or both? How do we get them?
It's a PDF and it's a bundle.
Mhm.
And I have some bonuses with that bundle as well,
Mhm.
where I also have in there a 30-day journal challenge
Mhm.
where you would check off day one when you did it, and that's the way you can track your progress and
Mhm.
see your growth.
Yeah.
I also have another bonus in there for individuals who, when they find their purpose and they understand what their purpose is, they may want to create their own journal as well, their own digital journal or their own ebook or their own guide to help somebody else
Mhm.
with with a similar experience on how to get through that. So I have a bonus in there where it teaches them how to create digital products and how to make money with your digital products by just sharing your life experiences.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I do feel when you're on an intentional personal growth journey, it does lead you to your purpose or passion, and often that is something that's helped you. So like journaling for yourself, and well, for me, it's I went down the hypnosis and NLP route, and that's what I do now. That's what helped me most when I understood more about how our mind and our subconscious works. So yeah, I
Yeah,
love that, and I love that you've provided not just the growth and healing for them, but something that can help them going forward as well. That's amazing. And
yeah,
obviously, I'll leave the link in the description. So I do encourage people to go and check out your journals, but also your TED Talk as well and your social media, because I know you're very active on social media. You do share a lot about your journey, and your as all of us, our journey's never ending. So I do encourage people to come and keep up to date with what's going on in your world as well.
awesome. Karen, I really do appreciate you. I
Yeah,
thank you so
likewise.
much.
Thank
I
you,
enjoyed this
Tasha.
conversation.
Me too. I did as well. And I wish you all the best in the future, Tasha. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story so openly today as well.
Thank you. I appreciate you.